Today, I'm joined by some of my colleagues, partners in government. I'll start here. Assemblymember Damon Meeks, who covers the district. Councilmember Michael Patterson, Northeast Councilmember. This is in his district. Chief David Smith. At-large member President Miguel Melendez. Victor Saunders, Special Advisor to the Mayor on Violence Prevention Services. Jose Pio, Northwest City Council. Anthony Hall, our manager of Pathways to Peace, and Captain Sam Lucian, who is the captain over the area. We all know why we're here. Last night, a 10-year-old was shot multiple times while minding her own business at her grandmother's house. This is happening all too often in our city. I've only been in office for about 122 days, and I feel as though I'm standing at this podium on a regular basis. I'm going to have the chief, who will give the particulars on this situation. I will then come back and make some comments and then also announce some next steps, particularly some things that we are working on for next week, which we will be rolling out. But this is a two-way track, and I'll talk more about this later in terms of prevention, which Victor is in charge of, and suppression, which the chief is in charge of. So I want to have the chief come up and give us some background on this, and then I will come back with some other commentary. Chief?
Thank you, Mayor. At approximately 1:58 a.m., the Rochester Police Department responded to the 200 block of Moulson Street for the report of gunshots into a house and a 10-year-old female having been shot. The 10-year-old female was transported to Strong Hospital, fortunately with non-life-threatening injuries, from being shot multiple times in the upper body. That's our standard. As you know, we give in press releases. I'm going to go a little further. She was shot 4 times in the chest, folks. The preliminary investigation found that the young girl was in the living room braiding her grandmother's hair when she was struck by gunfire that came through the walls. Evidence was located indicating that at least 20 gunshots were fired outside of the home, with numerous projectiles entering into the home through the walls. Investigation also shows that, unfortunately, this house appears to have been targeted. We believe the intended target of the shooting, who was not there at the time of the incident, but did become involved in the investigation, is a 32-year-old male resident of the house who is on parole for a conviction of assault in the first degree, robbery in the first degree, grand larceny, and has a history of weapons charges. This individual, when he did appear, was not only uncooperative with responding officers, but attempted to dissuade the family members from cooperating with officers and to destroy evidence at the scene. The Rochester Police Department is vigorously investigating this horrific incident. In order to solve this case and many others, the Rochester Police Department relies upon assistance from the community. We need members of the community to step up and help us bring justice to those that bring violence to our neighborhoods. In this case, we have the opposite. A 10-year-old child was shot multiple times, and a convicted violent offender is not only refusing to provide information as to what occurred, but is actively encouraging others in the investigation to remain silent. It is this accepted cycle of constant violence and retaliation that leads us to where we are today. Anyone with information regarding this morning's apparent shooting or any other shooting, please call 911 or Crime Stoppers at 428-9300 with any other information. We owe it as a community to hold the shooter of this child accountable. That's the end of my prepared statement. I just want to add, as the mayor said, we're going to have some more later this week on initiatives, but based on that, I just want to say, so far to date this year, we have taken 267 illegal firearms off the street. It's in 4 months, 267 firearms off the street. And later this week I'll be going over some of the tremendous work that my officers have been doing. But again, it just goes to reiterate, we cannot do this alone. We'll take anonymous tips, anything that we can help to follow us up. And I think, I understand a lot of times people are afraid to come forward, but I think also part of it is they see things on TV and they think, well, if I don't come forward, the police will still solve it. Because I watch these shows on TV and it's solved in an hour and it's all wrapped up in a bow. That's not the case. Without help from folks, we will never prevent this, and we certainly won't be able to solve them. And I'll turn it back over to the mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. You got my notes. Oops, sorry. This is particularly hard for me. This young lady, same age as my son, born the same year as my son. How do you come back? You may come back physically from being shot 4 times. But it's a lot harder to come back mentally and to have to carry that trauma in your life to know that when you are in a place where you are supposed to be safe, a safe haven. Grandmama's house was always a safe haven for many of us that are standing up here. We don't expect for bullets, over 30 shots to come into a house. The other thing I'll say is, I've been involved with violence prevention things for a very long time. I talked about this with Victor Saunders. I was a part of Rochester's Against Violence when Rochester saw some of the most violent crime in the 90s. But even back then, there was a code among people who were perpetrating these things. They left families and individual people out of it. But we are now at a next level where we have individuals that believe and think that it is okay to shoot into structures even when innocent children who have nothing to do with those beefs are in those houses. And we have to say that we need to stop this. There is another way. If you feel as though, and I'm going to have Victor Saunders come up in a second, if you feel as though you are going to do something that you cannot take back, there is an opportunity for you to get away from this. If you feel as though you are going to perpetrate a crime because you were wronged and you want to settle it yourself, there is another way. We have options and we have tools to be able to do that. I also want to mention that on Wednesday, next Wednesday, this was already planned before this incident this weekend, we're rolling out our violence prevention initiative along with an update from the police department regarding this summer on how we're going to further address some of these things that are happening. But again, I want to iterate. If you know something, say something. If you don't want to say it to law enforcement, you can call 428-SAFE or text 314-866 to help break this cycle of violence. But I want people to ask themselves, Rochester, is this what we're about? I know it's not. I know it's not. And all of these things that we're seeing as it relates to these houses being shot up, they're all related. They're all related to unnecessary beefs. But the problem now is that these beefs are being escalated and they are hurting innocent children. And all of my colleagues are up here because we want to say enough of it. We don't want any more of it. I want to invite, before I have Victor come up, the president of Rochester City Council, Miguel Melendez, to come up and make some statements, and then I'll have Mr. Saunders come up, and then we'll take questions. Mr. Saunders. I'm sorry, Mr. Melendez and Mr. Saunders.
To reiterate some of the stuff that the mayor has said already, I have a 9-year-old daughter, and I can't even imagine what the family is going through at this time. So I just want to first acknowledge the pain, the trauma that happens in our community. Just in January, we had another incident where a 3-year-old was shot. This is very different right now. And on behalf of City Council, I have a couple council colleagues with me today, but all of us, all 9 of us, want to see violence prevention and get further upstream in violence prevention and reduction strategies. And we are committed as a body to support the administration, to support the mayor, and the Pathways to Peace team, Victor Saunders, and anyone else who wants to get further upstream in prevention. But we need the community to also support this. We know this is very challenging. Houses being shot up, that's new to me this year. I don't feel that we've ever had a moment in time in our city where we've seen so many properties being shot up and therefore putting many other people at risk. While we want to reduce all violence and we don't want to see any shootings in our city, we certainly also want to make sure that there's sacred spaces in our community. Just last year we had a church that was shot at. So I want to remind folks that this is something that's been very traumatic over the last year or so, and we need the community to help us solve this. So with that, I'll turn it back over to the mayor.
Thank you, Mr. President. And later this week, and again, our communications will be getting the details out on Wednesday's press conference, in which we will announce increased investments for violence prevention, but also how we're also going to be dealing with suppression. The reason why it's important for us to call these things out when it happens is because, as I said in my inaugural address, violence must never, ever be normalized. It must never be normalized. And the moment that we let it become normalized is the moment that we lose our society and we lose our sense of who we are as a people. But we just don't want to talk and have idle chatter. We want to make sure that we are able to put forth solutions to help stop this violence that we're seeing. So you heard from the suppression side, which is the chief, stopping, arresting. We can't arrest our way out of this problem. There's also a preventative side there. And that's why I want to have Victor Saunders, who's the mayor's special advisor on violence prevention programs, to come up and make a few comments. And also, if you don't know, as I've said over and over again, Victor is centralized in the mayor's office. The Office of Pathways to Peace, Office of Neighborhood Safety fall under Victor Saunders. Mr. Saunders.
The circumstances for which we're here today are tragic, to say the least. The fact that we have to meet after an innocent 10-year-old girl has been struck by gunfire is a tragedy within itself. Like the mayor said, the trauma of having to bounce back from something so horrific is beyond words. This trauma, excuse me, this trauma that is created from gunfire affects this 10-year-old child, her grandmother, the street, the neighborhood, and our entire community. It goes without saying that this was a broken individual that fired into this house in hopes of striking any citizen within it. It was born out of hate for another individual. We have to get a handle on that within our community. There are individuals within our community without the ability to handle conflict, without involving any predicate members associated with that. And it can't go on any longer. Citizens are to be protected. There were rules to this, although they seem to have gone by the wayside. The rules remain the same. No children, no old people, period. No children, no citizens, period. As it relates to disputes, myself and my team will come and meet with you anywhere at any time to discuss a peaceful resolution to any dispute. No matter how big you feel it might be, we're willing to take that chance to assist in having a conversation that could eliminate an individual from flying into a house and striking a young child. Understand, Rochester is a small city. We each have relatives on these different structures: grandparents, parents, children, nieces, nephews, sons, daughters. There has to be a limit to the carnage that we're seeing in our city. And we're calling an end to that today. Give us an opportunity to work on these situations before they escalate to where we end up having to give services for another child. As the mayor stated, call 428-SAFE or text 314-8666. We will attempt, along with you, to eliminate this dispute as a life-changing event. But you have to give us an opportunity to do so. No further shooting of houses, please. No more innocent victims to the situations that the street brought, please. That's what we're here to ask today. Thank you.
You heard from our local folks. Just call up our state assemblyman, Demond Meeks, who represents a large portion of the city. Assemblymember Meeks.
Thank you, Mayor. This right here it's like, when exactly do it stop? This is an absolute heinous yet cowardly act on behalf of the perpetrators. And I say to us as a community, but in particular as men, if we can't protect our children and our women, what good are we? And I'm committed to working with the city and members of the community. We need anybody in the community that knows what's going on as it relates to this incident to step up. Even if you're the perpetrator and you want to make good, if there's a such thing in this incident, let it be known how you violated, why you violated. And if there was someone that perpetrated an act against you, let's get it all out there. And let's hold all parties accountable. Vic, you mentioned that this affect, the child and the family, the community, but also those students who are in that classroom. This trauma that has affected our community for far too long. It has such far reach. And enough is enough. Family, friends, stand up. We're working with the city. There's resources, the city and the county. If you're engaged in some of these activities and you want to start new, do something different. If you've been in harm's way, don't allow your family to be in harm's way. We have resources to assist them and placing them elsewhere. So please, just reach out. We have people here to help you. You can reach out to our office as well, the State Assemblyman Demond Meeks, 454-3670. But enough is enough. We have resources, we want to help, but we do know that we can't buy ourselves out of this situation. It's going to take every member of this community stepping up, saying enough is enough, and we're standing up against wrong. This is a matter of right and wrong. These acts are wrong. To shoot a gun off in our community is wrong, and we need to hold you accountable, and enough is enough. Thank you.
Thank you, Assemblymember. Before I take a couple of questions, again, we want to encourage 428-SAFE, 314-8666. As was stated, the resources are there. We're making sure that we coordinate. I've had conversations with the state, the executive chamber, this week, the chief and I. We will be doing other things as it relates to covering areas in the city that have seen high levels of violence that are totally unacceptable. And in this area, the North Clinton area that we saw this incident happen in, is one that is on our radar. But I want to again let the family know and this young lady know that our thoughts and prayers are with her, but we also need more than thoughts and prayers. We need action. We need action because faith without works is dead. And we need work in order to make sure that we move the envelope to transform our community and say enough with gun violence. The chief mentioned the gun number. Around this time last year, we have taken off the streets double amount of the guns that we would have around this time last year. And people would say, oh, that's a good thing. No, what that is telling you is that for every gun that we're taking off the street, 2 more are coming in here. So we still also have to address the illegal gun problem that we have in our community. We have to address that as well. Now, with that, I'll take a couple of questions. If you're going to stay your station, and I'll try to answer them. As we've said, the investigation is continuing with this incident. And on Wednesday, we will be laying out more as it relates to public safety and the investments that we will be making. And I'm sure some of the many people that you see here today will also be here on Wednesday. So with that, let's take some questions. Yes. No, we don't have any curfew. Here's why we don't have any curfew. We got people who are shooting people at 10 o'clock in the morning. Curfew will make a difference. Curfew will make we have people that are getting shot in the morning. It used to, now, 20 years ago, curfew might have made sense because people were doing it at night in the back of an alley somewhere, but now we have people who are so brazen and so bold that they don't care when they're doing it. They don't care when they're doing it, regardless of the hours. So what we are going to do is target our resources, work on prevention and suppression simultaneously to make sure that we do it right. But at this point, a curfew wouldn't have stopped a lot of the violence that we've seen earlier in the day. When a kid's getting off the school bus at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and gets shot, curfew would not have solved that. So at this point, that is not on the table. Not saying it won't ever be on the table, but right now it's not because the data doesn't lead me to want to enact that yet. Yeah. Yeah. We talk to all of them. We are in conversations with every single level of government. In fact, as I was sitting here, I got a text regarding some other issues related to public safety that we're going to deal with. We are talking to every single level of government. And you will see our partners working with us to help us, not only our state and local partners, but also our federal partners to help us on the prevention as well as the suppression side. And the argument that we're making is that we have to do both in order to make our community safe. Any other questions? Yes. Yep. Chief, you come with the microphone.
If your house is struck by gunfire, obviously you need to move to a safe location, get down on the floor immediately. If it's coming from the street, try and move to the back of the house and obviously call 911. You know, enough can't be said for Ring doorbells and all the security cameras that we have out there these days. In fact, we should be releasing a couple pictures from last night's incident very soon as well.
And again, I want to stress also that if you have someone in your home that you think is making you unsafe, we have the ability to relocate you. We literally can make you disappear. If you call 428-SAFE or text 314-8666, as the assembly member said, there's resources. It's not a money issue right now. We have the ability to be able to move people from that hellish situation that they may be in order for them to go and reform. We can help. So we're just not offering problems, we're offering solutions here on things that we are able to do. Maybe we'll take 2 more questions and then we'll wrap it up so you can get back to your Saturday. Okay. Yes, sir.
So what do you guys plan to do, and more often we discussed that, in the high shooting areas like North Clinton Avenue, Avenue of the Eagles, parts of the 19th Ward? What are you guys trying to do to curb the violence, especially in those areas?
We are looking at data specifically, and you will see increased attention, and you'll hear more about this on Wednesday, on those areas where we have those hotspots. As I said, 100% of the shootings that we had in the city happened in about 11% of the streets. And those are the areas that we will be targeting. You know, sometimes people think you just do a blanket enforcement. That's not what we need. We will have targeted enforcement, but not only just enforcement, but also resources to be able to help folks that want to change their lives. Now, if they don't want to change their lives, they get a timeout. And a timeout is you're removed from this community. And we're very clear about that. We're not going to tolerate it. I don't think anyone up here disputes that. But when you shoot a 10-year-old girl 4 times in the chest because you want to fire 30 shots into a house and you don't even know who's in there, come on. Really? We're not going to tolerate it. Last question. We're good? Thank you. Thank you all for being here today. Thank you.